Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I've learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And I kind of referenced this video on my main channel, and this is actually something I've talked about at length on my vlog several different times, so you guys may have heard this story before, but I realized I never told it over here, or I would tell bits and pieces of it, but I didn't tell the whole thing. So I wanted to come on here and just kind of explain the whole story, because for me, I don't know, I hope it is a story of hope for other people. There was a period of my life, it was after my mom passed away, that I completely stepped away from the 12-step program that I was involved in. I was very, very angry at my higher power. I felt like if there was a God, why would God take my mother from me at such an early age? I know that a lot of this is going to sound irrational, but it was what was in my head at the time. I didn't really feel like I was benefiting anything from going to 12-step meetings, and at that time I was only going to one meeting a week anyway. And one night I got into an argument with somebody at a meeting afterwards, and because I was not in a healthy space in my life, and I used this as an excuse to not go back to that meeting. Well, the problem was that that was the only meeting at the time that I was going to, and I wasn't even really participating actively in it. Like, I would go with my friend Tanya, and I would just kind of like sit there, and I wouldn't say anything. I'd always pass. I wasn't active in it at all. And what I know now going back is that I really had never grieved the loss of my mother. I hadn't grieved the loss of, my past relationship and other things that were going on, and I just was kind of holding on to a lot of, resentment and anger inside of me. So that just kind of built up and built up and built up. And there was a 4 or 5 year period where I never once stepped inside of a 12-step meeting. And I never picked up, I never drank, and I never used any drugs, but I was dry, which is a term that we use when somebody doesn't have any emotional sobriety. They're not making internal changes, they're not healthy, they're just not using. And it was probably one of the unhealthiest periods of my entire life. It was after my mom had passed away, and it was, at the beginning of my relationship, and it just was, I wasn't in a great spot, not at all. I mean, not at all. And so this went on for several years, and I just, I would talk to my sponsor like once a month. He would check in with me. I would talk to, my best friend Tanya on a daily basis still, but other than that, I really had no recovery support in my life. And so this went on for a while, and I just got more and more miserable, to the point where one day I literally, and I don't know if anybody out there relates to this, it wasn't anything that profound, nothing profound happened, I'm not gonna make it like it was like this huge thing and all these tragedies were occurring in my life. It just was kind of like, I went through some major changes. I, had resigned from my career. I went through a breakup with an ex, and my mom died, all within the period of 6 months. And I don't know that I really knew how to deal with that transition. And so it was like, I kind of just went numb and stopped feeling and just didn't deal with shit, honestly, And so that just kind of stuck for 4 years. And it just was not a great time of my life. And at that point, my husband and I, we were going out a lot, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We were going out to clubs and salsa dancing and I was in a bar a lot. And when you're an alcoholic and you don't drink, but you're in a bar, it's like at some point it starts fucking with you, and you're like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing? Like, what am I getting out of this? And to a point where it caused problems in my marriage. Because I wasn't being honest with my husband, and he would say, hey, do you want to go out? And I'd say, sure. And then I'd get out and I'd be real resentful, and he wouldn't understand it, And that's where I talk on here a lot about like the need for communication, because had I said to him, like, no, I don't want to go out tonight, I just want to watch movies, he probably would have said to me, okay, let's just stay in. But instead, I was in my head and I wasn't communicating this. Well, resentment and anger with all kinds of people in my life, my higher power, imagine being angry and resentful at everybody in your entire life, right? Okay. And this is no excuse for any of my behaviors whatsoever. I'm just explaining my mind state and how I got out of it, because the last couple days people have asked me, well, how have you changed as a person? How have you become a better person? These kinds of things. And so I think this story is important. So I went through this, and I don't know if anybody will relate to this part, but one day I was sitting here, I was actually standing right there in the kitchen with a notepad, a Post-it notepad, and I was making a list. And nothing happened. There was no big event happened that day or the days prior to that. There was no huge, nothing was going on. And I just started writing down, like, we hadn't changed the flooring in here, because the first thing I wrote down I remember was vacuum. And then I was like, fold laundry, and then like make bed, and I just lost it. And you have to understand that like I'm highly emotional in videos now, but I wasn't an emotional person before that. I just very stunted emotionally and was not able to express my emotions. I just was completely flat. And I've talked about this in videos on my vlog, but like I wasn't the child that like cried a lot. I wasn't like, that's not who I was. I know you see me on video today expressing, crying out of like, whatever, anger, frustration, or crying out of joy. But like I wasn't that person. And like it's taken me a couple years to really get to the point where I'm so happy that I can feel emotions today appropriately. So I'm standing there, and that was like the first time in years, like everything just like hit me at once, and I lost it. I just completely lost it. I'm looking at this list, and I'm like, I can't do anything. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to function. And I called my best friend Tanya, and I said, bawling, sobbing, and I said, will you please take me to a meeting tonight? And she said, I've been praying for you for 4 years to ask me to do that. And I said, okay. And she said, do you want to go to such and such meeting, which was our old home group and is now my current home group, which is a meeting that you go to on a regular basis. You make a commitment that you're going to be there every week. And it's a hardcore meeting. I mean, these people call you out on your shit, okay? Out on your shit. And I said, oh no, I'm not going to that meeting tonight. Not me. She goes, okay, well, what meeting do you want to go to? And I said, well, let's go here. So we went to this meeting, and it was like weirdly kind of like blizzard conditions. I just talked about this on my vlog the other day. I didn't know how long ago it was, but this must have just literally been the other day, because I can see myself in my car telling this story. It was like literally like blizzard conditions outside, which is weird because the year that I got sober, December 17th, 1994 is my sobriety date. That was one of the harshest winters we had in a long time. And it was very similar to that. So we go to this meeting, and it's Tanya and myself, 2 other people, and then this woman that I had actually known previously, and we start sharing, and it was her first meeting back after 4 or 5 years where she had no emotional sobriety. She had no spiritual foundation. She wasn't working internally on herself, and I hadn't either. And we had been friends in the past. To both be in this exact same meeting at the same time. Okay, and so when I get real religious on my channels or spiritual, it's not religious, it's spiritual for me. People don't understand sometimes, but for me, that was a God moment. And what that means is that I was supposed to be in that room with that person that night, and I believe that shit, okay? And if you don't like, if you don't like that, take what you like and leave the rest. But for me, certain people, certain events in my life, good and bad, have happened to me to grow as a person. And, I love the saying by Maya Angelou that when you're in the middle of the biggest tragedy in your entire life, look up and say thank you, because you are about to learn the most valuable lesson that you have ever learned. And, I still try to think that when I'm going through some really hard shit in my life, I look up and I say to my higher power in my head, thank you. I don't know necessarily today what I'm learning from this, but I'm learning something. And, so for me, there's a lot of connectiveness in life about my learning experience, and I've said on this channel a lot, that I don't believe that we ever graduate from learning, that I believe that like life is like this school that you never graduate from. You might like learn a lesson and something happened, learn a lesson from it, go to the next grade. Something happened, learn from it, go to the next grade, but you never graduate. Like you're always constantly learning, and I want that. Like that's who I want to be in my life. Like I'm open to learning about shit, like I want to be the best version of myself I can possibly be. So I went to that meeting that night, and I remember I went back to Tanya's house afterwards, and she said, we were sitting there in her living room, her husband laughed at this, and I said, do you want to go to a meeting tomorrow? I'm going to go to a noon meeting tomorrow, a noon. And she goes, she goes, no, I think you should go by your, I said, oh, come on, Tanya, go with me. She goes, no, I think it'll be good for you to go alone. She goes, for the 4 years that you haven't been going to meetings, I've been going to several meetings a week, so I'm good. I'm going to them. You go, right? Oh my God. So I'm about to tell you about a God moment here in a second, okay? So this person that I had gotten into a fight with, that I stepped away from, from 12-step meetings, like he and I really had it out on the phone. I mean, it was ugly. Like he called and threatened me, and I said some harsh shit to him, okay? I said to him, I said, listen, I said, the next time you ever call and threaten me, I said, you'll be picking up teeth with broken fingers. That was what I said to him, in sobriety, okay? So, well, I'll share about this man in just a second. So, I'm driving around that night, and there is a website called xaspeakers.org, and it has tapes, leads from every 12-step program you can ever imagine in your entire life. You know, AA, NA, CA, GA, SAA, OA, Al-Anon, Adult Children of Alcoholics, everyone. And all you do is go, I'll link the website below. It's a fantastic resource. They're all free to download. And so I was driving home and I was listening to this woman. She was like 30, but she had gotten sober when she was like 18. And I was listening to her story, her lead. And in there she said something that profoundly changed my life. And she said, you know, the one thing I've learned is that it's hard to fall off the wagon when you're sitting in the middle of it. And what I realized was I never, ever since day one sat in the middle of sobriety. I avoided people when I went to meetings. I was just kind of like, hey, how are you? I didn't share a whole lot and whatever. And so I knew that if I was going to go back, I was going to have to go back full throttle and do the deal. I was going to have to be it. I was going to have to walk it. I was going to have to do the shit, right, if I wanted this. And so I went home that night and I talked to my husband and I said, listen, I'm going back. And I'm going back full throttle. I'm going to go to meetings every day. That first year back, I went to a noon and an 8 p.m. meeting every night, 7 nights a week. I was going to 14 meetings a week. I bawled my eyes out about my mom's death to the point that people got so sick and tired of it. They would say to me after the meeting, I mean, like, how long are you going to grieve, dude? You know? I mean, it was a lot, you know? I grieved about all kinds of stuff in there. I cried, I joyed, I threw chairs, I was pissed, I was angry. And I got better, you know? Like, I got better. And, the anger went away and the resentment went away. And when I came home that night and I told Alex, and our marriage was fucked up, okay? And I said to him, I said, I love you. And he said, I love you too. And, you know, I said, and I've never shared this part in a video, what I said to him, I said, I'm either going to go back and fix myself and our marriage will recover as a result of it, or I'm going to go back and fix myself and we'll go our separate ways, but we'll be okay separately. And he said, Boo Radley back there, he said, no. And he said, I support you in whatever you need to do, I highly support you. And from that day, my husband has been so extremely supportive of me. I was going to turn the camera off, but I'm trying to see if they'll be quiet. I just want to keep on going. My husband has been so incredibly, supportive of me. We go to, counseling together. And it's not all because of my shit. There's part of him in that too. But that day, the conditions of our relationship changed, and we started respecting each other on a completely different level. We started communicating to each other on a completely different level. And that went up and down for a while, and we really had to get into the groove of how we were going to talk to one another and those kinds of things. I apologize for the dogs right now. I just really don't want to stop this while I'm in the middle of telling the story. I started going back to meetings. I talked to several of my friends on the phone that I was going out with and seeing regularly. There were 3 women that I was friends with that I would go out with on a regular basis, that Alex and I would, and I called each one of them and I said, I am not going to continue to go out anymore. I hope that we can continue to have a friendship, because most of our friendship had been going out. My one friend was Melissa, and the other 2 people I don't talk to anymore because they haven't called me in quite some time. I call them, they don't return my calls. It is what it is. I think that when I wasn't part of that scene anymore and I wasn't going out as much anymore, we didn't really have any kind of connection. But at that point, I had to start fighting for myself. I had to start fighting for me being a better person in my marriage and my life and what I wanted out of my life, and to be a better version of myself on a daily basis. I miss them. If I ran into them through the years and we've said hi and talked, but it's just not the same as it is. My one friend Melissa, you've seen in many, many of my videos, she's very supportive of me. She is just such an angel. And she said to me that day on the phone, she said, I'm here for you. I don't love going out all the time anyway, so we'll just watch movies at home. And we did a lot of that, and it was fantastic. And things started to get better. And things started to improve. And, I got in the middle of the wagon. And I started reaching out my hand, and I started introducing myself to people, and I started talking, and I got a sponsor, and I started working steps again, and I didn't bullshit, and I was honest. And when people said, are you okay? I said, no, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I don't feel right. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I started doing the fucking work, okay? And that's how I've changed as a person today, because I started doing the work. I started doing the stuff that was tough. The next day after, I want to go back to this. The next day after I went back to 12-step meetings, and Tanya said she didn't want to go to the noon meeting. I sat down, and I sat down next to this woman. This story. Oh my God. This alone right here is why, thank you, Boo and Tucker, for the wonderful chorus to my video today. But this alone is sometimes why I believe in spiritual synchronicity, and that I believe that people are put in our lives for a reason. That next day, I went to a noon meeting. I was terrified. I still to this day do not like to go to meetings I've never been to by myself. I'm always like to my friends, oh, come on, you want to go? I don't like to go by myself. I do it. I force myself to do it because I need to challenge myself to grow as a person today. And so I need to overcome my fears. And if my fear is walking into a room of people that don't know me with social anxiety, and I don't know how they're going to think about me or how they're going to feel about me, then I need to go in there and I need to do that. I need to do the things that make me uncomfortable to become a better person today. I need to take ownership over my actions. I need to take a look at them, and I need to grow from that. I need to take inventory on my life. I need to talk about my inventory with other people, with my friends, with my sponsor, and openly in meetings. And I need to own my shit. And that's how I live my life today. That next day, after Tanya took me to that meeting, I went to this noon meeting, and it was packed. I mean, there was like 40 people in there. I'm like, I was terrified, right? And a lot of them knew me from the past, right? They were like, hey, Peter, how are you? Whatever. So I sat down next to this woman. And as soon as I sat down, it was like the meeting was getting ready to start. She said, hey, can you would you mind moving over a seat? Because I'm saving that seat for a friend. And I said, oh, no, not at all. And so I move over, and the door opens as the meeting starts. And this man walks in, comes over, sees her, waves, looks at me, and sits down right next to me. And who do you think it is? It's the man that I got into a fight with that I walked away from a 12-step program. So after the meeting, he looked at me, and he said, can we go talk outside for a little bit? I said, sure. And he said, I haven't seen you around here for a long time. And I said, I stepped away, and I got real sick. And, I just wasn't taking care of myself. And he goes, well, I went back out after having 7 years. He said, I went back out, and thank God I made it back in. And he said, I really owe you an amends. And I said, I really owe you an amends. And we hugged, and we talked, and we worked it out. And he is one of my greatest friends today. And we said some real sick shit to each other, and that's not how we talk to each other today. I love the man. He is one of my dearest, dearest friends. And, you can change, but you have to be willing to do the work. It's just not easy. It's not easy just to sit there and go, I'm changed, and I'm not this person I used to be anymore. I've looked at some stuff that was so painful to look at. I've looked at some stuff that I never wanted to. Yeah, it's just, but it is what it is. And that's to work through uncomfortable shit, to grow as a person, to be a better version of myself, and have more peace of mind and serenity in my life. I'm okay with that. I'll sign up for that all day long, And so when people ask me, like, how have you changed? This is how I've changed. That's who I was. This is who I am today. Those are the actions I took, and these are the actions that I take in my life today to continue to live my life like this. And I will continue to hold myself accountable when I'm not being a version of myself that I want to be. So I wanted to make this video so that you guys could understand the process. I apologize for the dogs barking in the background, but I just got into the story and I didn't want to stop. If you want to hear more about it, I've talked about it at length on my vlog. I'm going to link the XA Speakers website below if you want to go check it out. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow.